I've been living off-grid in the high desert alone for 2.5 years now, and today I'm going to show you some of the progress that I've made on my homestead. I've spent most of my time focusing on food, water, and shelter, and this morning, just before I started recording, a great blue heron stopped by to give a great example of how much water has improved my homestead. I'm in the high desert. It's really quite dry out here. A lot of people think that you just couldn't really survive out here, and I certainly never would have expected to see a great blue heron. But by adding this pond on my homestead and all the swells that feed water to it, I've encouraged a lot of activity with birds and other wildlife. There are a lot of robins flying around and a lot of red house finches, and they like to land down on the edges of the pond there and get a drink. It's been down below freezing, and so a lot of the plants, such as squash and whatnot, have kind of died off. But I did get a bunch of hybrid willow trees started, and they do pretty good in the cold. So I have several of these around the property that'll grow to be about 40 feet tall. They're hybrids, so they don't require nearly as much water as a regular willow. And I have 14 new starts in the shop right now that I'll be planting around the homestead as soon as they get more roots. You might be familiar with the term greening the desert, and you're basically creating a canopy and recreating nature using permaculture and other techniques to be able to grow in an area that's not normally quite as hospitable. It looks like I have some arugula here that's pretty old. You would harvest it sooner, but I have things like this growing down the swells around my homestead, and the water from the homestead goes down these swells and feeds into the pond over there. That pond is brim full right now and has been ever since the beginning of monsoon season. I'll use some to water the dogs and gardens, and it'll go down a little bit and it'll rain some more and fill back up, and any excess can go out into what will soon be an orchard. Any surface that I can harvest rain off of, I do, such as the shop and the shed here, and I'm currently capable of storing about 14,000 gallons of rainwater here on my homestead. So this harvesting surface can go down into this cistern that I built, and this is a 3,600 gallon cistern underneath the picnic table there. It's just lined with a vinyl liner and then lined with another liner. There's wood over it, mostly logs, and then that's covered in another tarp, and I've just created a manhole so I can access that water. I graded my driveway so that any water can run off into the pond and out into the orchard. My agricultural shed here runs off into an IBC tote by the geothermal greenhouse, but I'm building another water cistern for this collection system. Anywhere around the homestead that I notice rain kind of naturally collects, I plant seeds. So there's different salads and stuff just all around the homestead. If you just pull the tops off, you can give a treat to the animals, and it'll just continue to grow back pretty well year round. So rain comes off of the agricultural shed currently through this pipe into an IBC tote, which is brim full just from the rainwater, and I use that to water my geothermal. Rainwater also comes off of the sides of the geothermal, and they go down to a swell around this other side of the property. This other side of the shop also has its own collection, so those are about 330 gallons a piece. So you got about 1,200 gallons there. And the bottom two I just keep for livestock just in case, and the top two is mostly for myself and the garden, as well as the pond water I can use for the garden. This swell is a good example, even though these have pretty well died off. This is sorghum, and I'll harvest all of these. Some of these I'll keep to replant, but this entire swell is just full of sorghum that I never watered manually. Those are all red house finches. I lied, there was a robin in there. Another thing that really attracts the birds is I have these feeders around the perimeter, and I just fill them with chicken scratch. Needless to say, I take as much advantage of water as possible on the homestead. As much as I harvest, I can use about 40 gallons a day. I still haul water if I'm going to go to town, if it's convenient, but I don't really think I necessarily need to at this point, especially once I finish that cistern on the other side there. As far as food goes, this hoop house has been good to me. I am able to grow year-round in here. All of this I just tore up yesterday, except for there's still peppers growing and stuff, so I left those, and the ones that look like they're dying off, I think I'll be able to get them to bounce back a little bit. I just didn't get the plastic up in here quick enough, but other than the things that are going, I planted a bunch of squash and beets, and the rest of this was planted a long time ago. There's a bunch of broccoli that are coming in, and all the time, every day, I haven't bought vegetables in a long time, and it's not that I always have exactly the vegetable that I prefer, but I always have something that I can eat, so there's no point in buying it. And as you can see here, this is going to be a really nice head of broccoli, and there's a bunch of broccoli in here, so that, as well as all these potatoes that didn't do too great because my soil just wasn't quite soft enough yet, but I did get a ton of squash. I've had all kinds of salad all the time, a lot of beets, carrots, and things like that. In fact, there's a bunch of carrots over here right now. You might not grow broccoli for salad, but you can eat it. It tastes like broccoli. And of course, kale and all different kinds of salads come in year round. There are a bunch of little carrots over here, so these I can let them go for a while longer and have a full-sized carrot. So the hoop house is where I've grown most of my food, but I do have a geothermal greenhouse, and I have hugelkulturs like you saw over there. They're covered in food pretty well, and the geothermal, it's done well, but I need to build up the soil, and I never had the solar running to really use the benefit of the geothermal 24/7. And we're pretty well to the point where we're using that now. Is that pretty good? There you go. So there's the first hugelkultur I did. It's still covered in kale and all kinds of stuff, and I had a lot more on it earlier. But now that it's below freezing, you lose a lot of that stuff. You got to harvest it. And I have 2 more hugelkulturs over here, which I've hardly watered at all, and as you can see, there's a bunch of salad on them, and I just did my best to see what I could grow without really taking much care to them. And then I have compost breaking down to make good soil, and I've got compost breaking down around the hoop house and the chicken coop. This little solar system here is just a battery that won't charge if it's below freezing. As soon as the sun comes up, the fan will start running again, and what happens is throughout the day, it starts to run just from the panel, then it charges the battery, and then it runs most of the night. But towards the end of the night, it's just not quite large enough to keep it running the entire night. But as you can see, this spaghetti squash, this would be dead out in the open, but in here it's doing just fine. In fact, I didn't get the geothermal wrapped in time, and a lot of stuff died off, but it looks like I'm recovering these tomatoes. I set up a beehive in here, and hopefully I'm going to score some native honeybees in spring. And this entire area is an expansion. I'm going to do an aquaponics system over here, but really I just wanted to show you it's currently 43 degrees in here, which is a lot warmer than outside. So this side I was able to grow in this last season. The soil's not great. It's not as good as what's in the hoop house because I haven't worked it as long. But I just pulled everything out of this side, turned everything except for, this was I think I can recoup that, so I left it. Soon I'll plant some more in here. I've got to pull out any potatoes and whatnot that's on that side, which won't be much. I'll turn everything, plant again, and then I'll do the same on this side. The soil here, this is just native soil. It's loamy, which means it works, but I just need to continually add organic matter to it to improve it. I'll put that trailer bed over. I'll put this pond. Well, this is a pool, like a aquarium for fish. I'll set that up. The trailer will be above it, and there will be lava rock in the trailer to make a grow bed for the aquaponic system. And then the rest of the area will be garden. So it won't do extremely well at first, but it'll do something, and then it'll continue to get better over the next couple years. See this is a lettuce in here that has done fine, and I may as well just leave it be, right? And just grab some off of it, feed it to the animals, and let it continue to grow. This tubing, it's a corrugated 4-inch tubing. There's 200 linear feet of it that's about 3 feet underground on the original side here. And that runs back and forth, so it pulls the hottest air from the pinnacle of the geothermal down, and it'll cool it in the summertime and pump back cooler air, or in the wintertime it'll pull that air down and warm it up some and then pump it back into the system, and that helps regulate the temperature in here. I'm hoping that the bees will just kind of find their way in. There's a couple little areas, and I've added lemongrass oil, and that'll attract them because it's similar to their pheromone. So hopefully they come in here, they find a place to set up, and then, you know, they can come and go as they want. And being able to come and go, they won't, you know, get stuck in the top of the geo and die. I'll probably just cut out, you know, a nice window in one of these areas, and then put some just a little bit of that lemongrass oil so that they can sense that might be a good area to come in at. I have a raised bed here, which is basically a hugelkultur. I think I'm going to put in one more hoop house here, and then the water from the pond overflows, and I have swells that go out, and that'll be an orchard eventually. As far as growing food itself goes, that's pretty much what's going on there. We'll give the piglets some of this so they can get that potassium and whatnot. Well, look at them. They were all snuggled up. There is one more aspect to growing food that is important and took quite a bit of work, but it's been beneficial. Unfortunately, my potatoes didn't do as well as I hoped. I think it's just because the soil wasn't really soft enough and nutritional enough, dense. But this is my root cellar, and it's 8 feet deep. A few feet of it's above ground, and well, we'll go take a look in there. So, being that it's cold outside, it's going to be warmer in here. So it regulates temperature for us, you know. And you can see I've got tomatoes and a bunch of my little potatoes, and there's a big old turnip and some beets. These are all squash that I had harvested. This potato harvest probably would have been pretty good if they grew to full size, and I still have a bunch more to harvest. I think I need a new battery in this. It looks like it's 55 degrees in here. There's ventilation, so this pipe goes to the ground and out the top, and I have one closer to the top here. I do think I need just a little bit more ventilation, so I'll work on that. Otherwise, this is doing the trick pretty well. Every time I come in here, I check things, and it looks like this guy's got a little mold, so I'll just go give this to the pigs. And, well, everything else looks like it's pretty well good to go. I'll give some of this to the guys over here. Not everybody likes to eat meat, but I do. And I raise pigs and I've raised goats for meat. I've harvested 3 goats so far, which yielded about 90 pounds of meat. And I have a pig that I'm going to harvest soon. There's 5 other piglets that'll be ready to harvest pretty soon. And I keep a boar and I have 2 females. So I'll continually breed them. They're not pregnant now because I don't want them to have piglets in the winter really. But in a few months, I will allow the boar to mate with both females, and then we can breed some piglets for springtime. Magdalene has kids right now. She's pregnant, so sometime next month, I believe, she'll be due. So she'll have some kids. So there's 2 more goats, and then the smaller boar there, that'll be Christmas dinner, I think. In fact, I think I might process that pig in time to have a special dinner for Thanksgiving, and then, you know, the standard ham for Christmas. I want to be as sustainable as possible, and meat feeding them was pretty expensive until I realized that I could go out, and I have tons of this hairy grandma on my homestead, and I had this pile up to about here, but I've been too busy to go out and cut lately. But this right here is at least a week's worth, maybe probably 2 weeks, and then I'll start going out and cutting more and more. I'll be able to fill up this entire area here, and well, there's enough of this to at least offset my cost by 50%. By going out there, cutting it, raking, it's going to grow even better next year. Plus, I'll be able to harvest twice next year. So I do think I'm going to have 100% of the needs met for livestock feed. And that doesn't even account for all of the salad that I give them and all of the sorghum I was growing for them, which will grow in all the swells around the property. So we'll definitely have the livestock feed needs met here within the next year. Currently, I haven't bought vegetables in a long time, and I supply at least half of my meat right now, and that's gonna real quick, I won't have to buy meat anymore because, you know, like I said, I have 5 piglets that are gonna be ready soon and 2 more goat kids, and then they're just gonna keep coming after that. And so we're definitely catching up quick to my needs for all of my food. Just about everything will be met, except for, you know, I'm not making my own butter, and I'm not making, you know, the kind of cheese I like, and some of those smaller things, but we'll work on that as time goes on. When I talk about food, water, and shelter, my main shelter is my van. So it's a camper van. It has a bed in the back and shelving and a place to cook, and that's been really nice. And, you know, the first month I started to build the shop here, and while I don't live in the shop, it is shelter. It provides somewhere for me to work and to store things. It's a mess in here right now because my solar system is down. I'm waiting on some parts to replace them, but I have shelving for tools and food. I have an area to print postage and run my business. So this side of the shop is for my herbal tea business, where I make blends of tea. I sell on Amazon and on my website. And my freezer is out of place. Normally it goes in the corner, but I've had to move it so that I can charge it a couple times a day without using my normal system. And then, well, these things don't normally go here, but I just got all these different parts for my bee keeping. So these are some leather gloves and a smoker. Food items that I don't really want to keep in the root cellar because it's too humid are in here. I have a lot of beans and rice and flour and sugar and those kind of things. And throughout the year, as I get different things to harvest, I make sure to keep the seeds so I can plant them the next time around. There's a wood burning stove in my shop so I can heat it up or cook on it if necessary. I have a shower in here. There's not normally a battery up here, but because my system's down, I'm just using a battery occasionally. I only shower like every 3 days, you know. The animals don't seem to mind. In an emergency, I could sleep in the bottom of that root cellar because it's just, like if it's 20 degrees outside, it's probably, well, 50 in there. So that'd work for some shelter if I needed to. There's shelter for the animals. The agricultural shed is a form of shelter. It's mostly for feed and whatnot. And then the little corner there, I've set up a gym so I can work out. Even the dogs have shelter. So these are sandbag homes that I pretty well bury in dirt, and it stays really warm in there. You can feel, if you just put your hand in there, it's pretty warm, and there's straw down in there to keep them comfortable. Buddy. Those dog shelters are nicer than my shelter. They're better insulated, and just breathing in them keeps them warm. And eventually I'd like to have something like that, but I'm just going to take my time and do it right. I'm following all the rules of the county, just like I've done for everything else on my homestead. In fact, this is my county approved, inspected, and permitted composting toilet system. So there's a bucket here and a bucket there, and this lid is built so that no flies are really going to get in or out. And there is a fly trap if some do get in there, which there's only a small amount in there. And this is hardly filled. I've had it set up for months and months now. But once it is completely filled, I will just switch this lid over to this unit, and I can put this lid over on this unit, allow it enough time to compost, and then just move that compost. I can put it under trees around the homestead. At that point, it's basically just dirt. I have a bucket over here that has toilet paper and sawdust and a spray bottle so you can wash your hands. And that's about all it really takes. And the lid here is just made out of tile, so it's heavy, and it'll keep anything from getting down in there. I also have tags for hunting, and that's another way to supplement my food. So we've pretty well covered food, water, and shelter, and we even touched on my business a little bit, because you do need to have a source of income. And I have created 100% of my income from my homestead. I don't go to a job and work anywhere else. I don't have, a check coming in from my family or Social Security or something. All of my income has been produced here on the homestead. As far as upcoming projects go, I'll be gardening all winter long. I'll be setting up the aquaponics system, finishing the cistern on the side of the agricultural shed. So make sure you subscribe if you want to catch more videos like this, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.